See, my husband is all the day, watching the news and watching everything else.
No,
Last week when I told him, he's like, welcome to the world, where have you been? I'm like, what do you want me to stay connected to? I don't know what's going on.
No.
It's the same as last week, right?
It's the
Or-
continuation.
Well, we're continuing, yeah.
Continuing
from last week.
Well,
Try and say.
I'm gonna leave at 9:30, I'm sorry, but I have
9:30.
to-
I'm gonna leave at 9:30 also. That's a problem.
Hopefully.
Wait,
5 minutes.
Hold on, 1 second.
Pero si
Get
para
the phone
poder
off.
comprar lo que necesites, no te vuelvas loca. Lo más es que también ahorita que puedes hacer.
So last time we were discussing sibling rivalry and the various challenges that we face. We're going to try to see what we can do to be helpful in this regard. So as we've mentioned a number of times before in dealing with children, the basic approach should always be to acknowledge the emotions, to give credence and validity to what they are feeling, because that they are allowed to feel. And if we delegitimize their feelings towards each other, so then we end up with children who will A, dismiss our feelings and our wishes, B, they will begin to doubt their own ability to know what they are feeling. And it's very, it could be damaging, but it's at least very unhelpful. So in a case when you have 2 or more siblings upset with each other, so it's always a good idea to acknowledge, wow, I see somebody's very upset, I see somebody's very angry, or I see 2 children who are very angry, whatever it might be. That you can't go wrong with that, because those are, as I said, feelings are real, and feelings belong to the person who's feeling them, and so therefore you can always acknowledge that what they are feeling. If it's anger, if it's frustration, if it's jealousy, whatever it might be, that's very obvious on the surface. You can't go wrong by acknowledging what they are feeling. The next thing is to listen to each side with respect. Again, the feelings and the jealousy that's always right below the surface in sibling rivalry is very, very real to the children, and they want to be acknowledged. So if you listen to them respectfully, you're not agreeing with their point of view, you're not validating their point of view, you're not validating their perspective, so you validated their feelings, and you listen respectfully to what they're saying. That, again, when these things erupt, and there's never, you don't usually get warnings, when children start fighting with each other, you should try to keep in mind that, I'm going to stay calm, I'm going to acknowledge their feelings, and I'm going to listen respectfully to what they have to say. It's usually not a simple matter, right? It's usually not a simple matter, and you have to express that. Wow, this is a tough one. Shlomi wants to play with his blocks, and Sarala wants to have some blocks also, and there's only a few blocks. So what do we do? That kind of a thing. Again, you're making it into something respectable, real, objective. You're not taking sides, and all the things that we said that you shouldn't do. Assuming that it's not a dangerous situation where you have to separate them, you express faith in their ability to work things out. If you see that they're, confused, or they don't seem to be able to, begin to work anything out, you may throw in a suggestion or two, or maybe we could share, maybe 1 minute and 1 minute. Very simple things, which you would assume that the kids could figure out on their own, but A, maybe they can't, and B, they might just be so upset at the moment that they can't think straight. And then the last thing is you leave the room. Don't leave.
What?
Leave the room. Don't leave the house, but leave the room if you can, and leave them to themselves to try to work things out. So those are the initial responses that will be helpful.
Maybe we can watch this, leave them to kill themselves.
Right.
Let me know when that's right.
So again, this is depending if it's dangerous, if it's getting towards hurting each other. So we'll discuss that in a few minutes. But whatever they're fighting over something, they'll always find something to fight over. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily so upset. Many times they want to. The main point is they just want to get your attention. Like you said, they just want your attention, and they'll start a fight for that, or they'll portray themselves as a victim for that. Just to be able to get your attention. Which is why when we focus immediately on the one who seems to be the aggressor, so they're giving them many times exactly what they want, because they want some attention. So it's usually better off, as a general rule, not to defend the victim so much, but to allow the victim to at least to deal with the situation. So if you're coming in as the policeman who's going to, who's putting the aggressor in his place, so they don't mind that so much because they got your attention. And you're not really helping the supposed victim being able to handle their own affairs, which is another goal that we want to try to advance that ability. All right, so we basically can look at the situation as there are 4 different levels of fighting, and we need to be able to distinguish between them so that we know how we should be reacting. So if it's normal bickering, so stay out of that. That's their world. Nobody's hurting anybody. They don't need your help. They'll work it out. It's very important to not have the sense that our home has to be perfect, and that everybody is home on the range. What's the rest of it? Whatever. But it's not. We don't need to get involved with everything, and it'll dilute our effectiveness when we do need to. Okay, so if the situation is heating up, and you see that they're getting more and more upset with each other, so that would be what we said in the beginning, the first one, the helpful responses, that there are some very tried and true steps that you can take that will certainly keep it from escalating, and hopefully will diffuse it. All right. So then, let's say it starts looking like it's a little bit dangerous. So you have to be able to decide if this is a play fight or a real fight. And the definition of a play fight as opposed to a real fight is when you ask them the question, is this a play fight or a real fight? So they both have to answer that it's a play fight. Because if one answers that it's a real fight, then obviously it's not a play fight for that person. So, and then they need it to be stopped. So you need to know whether they're both okay with it. Like the young sister who was held down by the older brothers, and they're tickling her, and she's laughing, and it looks like so much fun. But she's gasping for breath, and it's not a good situation. So the parent needs to ask, was that a play fight or a real fight, and allow the child. It's amazing that you can really go through an entire childhood and lifetime, and a parent never asked the child, like, was that a play fight or a real fight? Was that something you enjoyed or not? And it was just the child just assumed something that they had to endure. Then when they got older, they got very very unhappy with their parents, realizing that they did nothing to stop these things. Which, again, so the parent has to be involved, be aware, and you have to make sure that that both children are okay with it. We tell the children in school all the time, when they were teasing somebody or they were harassing somebody, do you think that they enjoyed it? Did you think the other person enjoyed it? And they never thought about that. It's just a joke. I was just kidding. The joke has to be appreciated by both sides. If it's not appreciated by both sides, it's not a joke. It's just another form of hurting somebody. Okay, so what do you say when it looks like it's starting to get dangerous? So you ask them, is this a play fight or is this a real fight? And then just say, this is too rough, find another activity. If you determine that it's not something that you can tolerate or it's going to be potentially dangerous, this is too rough, find something else to do. Say that assertively and obviously keep an ear out for what's going on. And then if it's definitely a dangerous situation, so that's a whole other situation, and we're going to get to that in a couple of minutes as well. Okay, so we had spoken about a mild, quote-unquote, situation where we assume that the children can work it out with each other. It depends, of course, on their age. It depends on the situation. It depends on how much training you've done with them. But assuming that they can work it out, so we had the suggestions about acknowledging their feelings and validating their feelings, especially the feelings of anger. Listen to each other respectfully, and then help them work it out, or tell them they can work it out. If they need any suggestions, you're available. Say leave the room, but you're available in case they have any questions. So that's for a middle level, let's say, of disagreement between the children. Okay, so let's say they can't. Yes.
If the situation is they are in one room and I'm in the next room and I hear everything when they're saying the fight, but I hear one child screaming, "Ima, Ima," like something and I know it's nothing because I'm next door.
Mm-hmm.
So what should I do to him? He's like,
I mean,
oh,
you know it's nothing.
I know it's nothing. I'm next door. I I hear everything.
Right.
Like I'm in the next room.
Right. So I would, if you're busy, keep doing what you're doing. I mean, if you know it's nothing, right? You're saying no matter how loud they're screaming, you know that they're not really in any danger.
Right. And then he says, "Mommy, you don't care. I was calling you nonstop and screaming like."
Right. So you would have I would think you should have a discussion with them, not during the fight, and say, maybe we'll make up a signal that if you really need my help, you'll say some word like, he's hurting me, or say something that I'll know that it's serious. But you can't use that unless it's really serious, because then it'll just become like Ima. It'll just but you don't have to. Like most situations, you can do a lot of preparatory work beforehand. Get them ready. You tell them it's it's inevitable. You're gonna get upset. It's only unless you really are fearing that you're going to be hurt. So then I'm not gonna be responding to you. If you're really fearful, use these words, and then then I'll come. Something like that. Okay. So if they can't work out the problem by themselves, so call a meeting. Okay, stop. Everybody stop. Okay, let's see. Let's have a discussion. Okay, I'm going to let Shlomi speak. Okay, and Sarah, you can't interrupt while Shlomi's speaking. Then I'm going to let Sarah speak. Shlomi, you can't interrupt while Sarah is speaking. Okay, then I'll give you each a chance to answer what the other one said, and the other one can't interrupt. Okay, and then we'll see. That's the first step. You set down the ground rules, make sure that everybody can be heard, and let them say their piece. if you do that effectively and fairly, I'm not saying equally, fairly, so then they're already, it could be many of their needs are already met, because they want your attention, they want validation, and as I said, going back briefly to the whole basis of why siblings fight with each other, it's not because two individuals can't live together. They can live together fine. It's usually they're vying for your attention. They may feel there's something lacking, and this is their way of getting it, of either getting a rise out of you or wanting to get you to validate their feelings. So by just listening to both respectfully and making it clear that they have a chance to speak, that's already, you're going a long way towards solving the issue.
When
Yes.
your child is speaking, and you said you allow them to, say what they need fairly, like what if a child starts going off, like where they're getting out their feelings, but they're really venting, or they're blowing things out of proportion, or like, you want to be able to hear them, you want to be able to help them work it out, but sometimes it's really detrimental.
Well, you have a time limit.
Okay.
Okay, whatever they want to say without cursing and openly insulting. They can say their piece, and then they're finished. And then.
So it's not a free for all time for them to just speak, like they still
Right.
have to be
It's a time.
respectful
I'm going to listen to you for a minute, and then we're going to listen. And time is up. Give them 5 seconds. 5-second warning, whatever it might be. Just like raise the level of the interaction to one of respect and a little more objective. You may want to show more validation to the children. You may want to write down. I'm going to sit there very like like, oh, okay. I'm writing down. It's so. And actually write it down so that they see that. I mean, some of us can remember things better than others. We're auditory learners, so we hear something, we remember. Some are visual learners, so we have to write them down. But even if we don't have to write them down, it's a nice touch to show the children that we're taking them seriously. Again, this is not normal bickering. You're not going to use up your paper supply. If it's really getting to a dangerous situation, you'll want to show them that you take them very seriously. And as we said, you allow time for rebuttal after they've heard the other side, and you let them come back with something. And then you say, okay, so we have, or you can paraphrase. So, Shlomi it was his idea to take out the blocks, and he wants to build a city, and he needs all the blocks. And Sarala also would like to play with the blocks, and she needs some blocks because she wants to make a farm. Okay? Now, how do we come up with a solution? So you've already dissipated the whole situation, and the children may actually come up with ideas, and some of them may be ridiculous, but write them all down also. Okay, this idea, okay, gives validity to it. Then some, maybe part of the ground rules in the beginning or at this point say, well, mommy has to eliminate some of the, they have to work for mommy also. In fact, one of their solutions is we'll stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning, so we'll both have enough time to play with the boy. Obviously, mommy has her say also. But then, come up with a series of solutions that, and you'll be amazed at how reasonable the children will be, because, again, the main point was to get your attention and to get your validation. So they've gotten that. So then they'll figure it out, because they're pretty good at managing. They can get along with a lot less than we can. Most of the supposed needs are because they just want to get a rise out of us, so they want our attention.
What
Yes.
if they're not fighting or whatever, but they're more heated, like when they're arguing or when they're having a problem? So you can't really at this moment call a meeting or but you they need you to get involved to figure it out because it's just been going on and it's not stopping. So can you like pause that? Can you say like, okay, we're taking a break, and then like, you know, or should you like deal with it right at the moment?
Yeah, so, I mean, if it's not a dangerous situation, it doesn't look like it's heading to a dangerous situation, so we had mentioned that try to calm it down, maybe listen to each other for, you know, a minute or so, and then say, I'm sure you can work out a solution. If you need any suggestions, I'm in the next room. And
If they're
you know,
screaming, should you leave them?
if they're screaming,
Fighting?
depends how bad your headache is. Yeah. I mean, if you have if one of your goals in the house is to try to lower their voices,
Yeah.
in general, so that's a general thing. Like you're shouting so loud I can't hear you. You know, whatever. I mean,
Okay.
train them that if they want your attention, they have to speak. They have to speak appropriately. And yeah, it's a general value that, you know, you can be heard a lot louder if your voice is softer or whatever, however you want to say it.
Brother Baumann,
Yes.
it sounds so easy when you say it, like with blocks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, let's come up with a solution. I'll play for 20 minutes, you'll play for 20 minutes. Can this meeting work with, like, he was touching me and he was mimicking me and he
called
screamed in
me
my
names
ear?
and he hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Well, there's no like
there's no solution to that,
Right.
you know?
Right. So, I mean, I would use the same principles that I see. You know, I see one child who doesn't like to be touched, and I see another child who, you know, doesn't like to be hit. You know, so everybody has a need in the situation. What can we do to make it work for everybody? We use the same principles. Obviously, every situation is going to be different. Again, going back to what I said, many times they're bothering the other one just to get your attention, and so that's where you have to be maybe out of sight, but certainly you're listening closely, and you know whether it's a real fight or they're just bickering. So the bickering, you know, you stay out of it, and they, you know, don't, because if you come running in and rushing in to save the situation all the time, so A, you'll go nuts from all the disruptions, and B, they will never learn how to work things out themselves. So if they know that, you know, mommy's not coming in to swoop in and save them, so especially the supposed victim will not be such a victim anymore, because it's not getting him or her what they want. Okay. Now, number 4, if the fighting is heading towards hurting. Okay, the classic case, you know, one standing on a chair with a big truck about to throw it on the other kid's head, and the other kid's got a baseball bat about to swing it back. So
The truck's in danger.
right, a dangerous situation. So the suggestion made, and this is from the Siblings Without Rivalry book, Bible, is first describe the situation. I don't know if it's an official technique in the in the world of therapy, but describing the situation will calm it down. I see one boy so angry about to throw a big block, and I see another one who's about to, you know, hit with a bat, and they're both furious. You know, you're describing a situation. It sort of catches the kids, and it may momentarily, again, it's some validation in there, but some appreciation for what they're feeling. It's a way to, you know, put a timeout on what's going on. Because if you don't intervene at that point, yeah, they're very likely to hurt each other, and it's not a simple situation, and you have to intervene. You have to intervene. Okay, so once you've described what their actions and their feelings, so then you describe the situation, which is, this is a very dangerous situation. This is a dangerous situation. And we need a cooling off period. We need to stop. We need to step back. We need to put down whatever it might be. You describe it, and describe what has to happen next. This is dangerous. We have to have a cooling off period is always good. We're not telling anybody drop this toy, drop that toy. Cooling off period is it's like a thing. So this way but you've disarmed them and you've put a pause on their frustration and their anger. And then you may, if they each have a separate place to go to, so you would say, quick, you go to your room, and I'll come and see you in a couple minutes, something like that. It's like you're holding them like this, only that's not so effective. You're separating them so that they have time to cool down. Okay, this is all emotion. It bubbled up for whatever reason. It can just as easily calm down. So that's how you
finish the first sentence before the head will be down.
What? Okay, well.
Speak faster.
This is only if
Get in earlier.
if they were really that upset, then you're getting there after the truck was thrown and the bat was swung. So then you're dealing with a different situation. But we're assuming that they're still menacing each other and threatening each other, and they haven't, so they are hesitating a drop. Then you can come in and you'll be able to cool it off. Okay, so at this point you basically will give support to each child. You don't take sides. That is that's a big no-no to take sides in these kinds of situations, because there's really no big benefit in taking sides, because they need to live together for many more years. They need to feel, and that'll work through feeling that they both have your love and your attention and your validation. And they didn't really want to, again, the point wasn't to win, because it came up in the moment. They're just, they're hanging out with each other and they're playing, and somebody feels slighted. So it doesn't help. And again, most of what I'm saying is based upon the presumption that sibling rivalry is mainly about the parents. It's mainly about the parents. Okay, we have people who live in dormitories. We have high school boys who live in dormitories. They don't act like this towards each other. Okay, it could be maybe if the dormitory supervisor acts like a parent and isn't effective, maybe but they know he doesn't have that kind of authority. It's about the parent. It's about that concern that they're not being validated. I don't know if we discussed last time about treating each other equally, but when you say that I love you both equally, so that's very ineffective and negative, because you're basically telling them that I don't really love you that much. It's like you're all the same. It's like I'm nothing special. So that's why, rather than loving equally, you have to love uniquely. I love you for you. Nobody else is like you. You have that sweet smile. You have, you're so helpful. You're this, you're that. Whatever the qualities that you can unearth, however hard you have to work to unearth those. But if you share that with the child, that is, that's gold. It's when you tell them that you're equal. So that's why you want to give them what they need. And if you're deciding, you're taking sides, so it's usually then it becomes more about you. Like, I'm frustrated. I need this to stop, and it's probably coming from a good place, but many times it's not helpful. Like you have let's say you have two siblings, and the one is 4 years older than the other one, and they're constantly torturing the little one. So you'll take the younger one's side, because looks, on the surface, this is inequity. Pick on somebody your own size. That's such a basic value. But we're not aware of all of the things that the little one did to, infuriate the older one. They're very smart, and they know how to get them, just like they know how to get you. They know how to get the older sibling. So, taking sides based upon what's on the surface is just going to be ineffective and could perpetuate, what the underlying issue is. So again, like we said before, when you have this dangerous situation, once you calm them down, you state each child's case. Okay, this is what I need. This is what This is what you think should be. This is what the other one is. Then you state the value, whatever is important, whatever your rule is. Okay, it's important that it's important that we find a way to share, or it's important that we give each other a chance. We have rules here. You can't you can't go into somebody else's shelf and take things off their shelf without permission. Whatever it might be, just state again calmly, clearly, objectively. These are the values here. You can tell them that if you need help negotiating and working it out, I'm available. And then again, try to step out of the situation, assuming that they're not going to be hurting each other again, and help them to find a way how to deal with it themselves. But clearly, there are situations when you do have to step in, but that's usually limited to when you're afraid that somebody's going to get hurt, get physically hurt, emotionally hurt. From one emotional hurt, it's not, you don't have to worry that much. You can work it out later. But if physical hurt is something that you really have to step in, and you have to deal with it. And then finally, in the area of just dealing with siblings and understanding how to help them, it's effective to be able to say things that enhance their view of each other. We as the parents have a totally different perspective of the situation. To us, they're all our children. We love them very much. We're proud of them. We want them to develop into appropriate human beings, and we want them to be loyal to each other. So we have to do things that will help them see it in that way as well. So when they are playing nicely together, so make a point of it. Well, you two are having so much fun together, and let them hear that, we can have fun together. Because don't take that for granted. If you're on the phone with your mother, your aunt, your spouse, your sister, let me tell you what my kids were doing today. And make sure the kids can overhear it, and let them hear that you're talking proudly about what they did, or whether they did, each of them. Make sure you get to each of them, or something they did together. Whatever it may, let them hear how proud you are of what they're doing. That will go a long way. Let's say one of your kids comes to you and they need something. I'm having, I have to do this project for school and I can't, I don't know how to string the beads on or whatever on the roof. Oh, go to your sister. She's really good at that. They need her help. You praised her. She feels good. He's getting what he needs, and it's again. Remember, they love each other. They do love each other, in 99.9% of the cases. They do. So we have to work with our strength and emphasize that and enforce that. Now you would ask before about when they're screaming, yelling, you may want to say, I hear crying, I hear screaming, do you think you can work this out yourselves? Showing confidence in their ability to work it out. Now it could be that they're perfectly happy screaming and yelling at each other, then okay, then just take 2 Tylenol and hope for the best. But again, showing your faith in them, your pride in them, and showing your confidence in their ability to work things out, and then you can give them general, philosophies, hashkafos, that it seems like the best toy is always the toy that's in someone else's hand. Always seems like that. And we adults say the grass is greener on the other side, but children, it always seems like the best toy is the one that's in someone else's hand. To let them just hear these things and as background music, that there are ways. So just to sum up, we pretty much we could go on, and of course when you apply it to the situations, it's not going to follow the text so easily. But the most important thing to remember is to validate their feelings. If they're upset with a sibling and they express how take her back to the baby factory, and we don't want. Okay, so you say, I see you're really upset. I see you're really unhappy. Of course, we're not going to do that, but I understand that you're feeling a little angry right now, or you're feeling very angry right now. Don't minimize it. But she's here to stay, and let's see how we can work these things out. Again, validating the feelings. Yes.
What about the voice, the tone, the voice? Like, always seems to be like soft and nice and calm. When is the balance? I'm trying to be relaxed.
Yes. Okay.
Sometimes.
Right. So that's actually a very, very important question. Very, very valid question.
And it makes them also upset to see me come. Mommy come.
Next to the tiger, no, get out.
So we always comment, not necessarily in sibling rivalry, that when children let's say they're caught saying something that's not true. Whatever, it's clearly that they lied. They know they lied, they lied, they're just covering up to something. And the mother says, you really shouldn't lie, it's not nice, in that tone of voice. So they get the message that that's no big deal. Okay. Then if somebody, knocks over a lamp or something and it breaks, and and you go absolutely crazy, and you're upset for a week, and you're so then you're teaching them that what's really important are our material possessions. That's what's really important, and our character is not so important. And so you're right that your tone of voice is extremely. It sends, again, the children are pure emotion, and they will learn from your tone of voice. If you tell a little child in a very angry voice, "I love you to pieces," but you're angry, so they're not going to hear the words. They're just going to internalize the body language. So you're right. So the question is, why are you getting upset when there's fights between siblings? Is it because you have a headache and they're making it worse? Is it because in 2 minutes, your mother-in-law is about to walk in the door and you're going to be embarrassed because she's going to see your kids fighting, or you're upset that that they should not be fighting so much, and they need to be spoken to. So that's why I say, as a general rule, it should be about the children and their needs, not about us and our needs. And what should be first in our minds is how to stay calm. When there are things that happen that we want to be upset about, like if a child lies or cheats or steals, then going crazy it's not necessarily the right reaction either, but they do have to see how it really touches you and how it really bothers you. But you can state that in calmer ways as well. Yelling and screaming is usually not effective in getting through to the kids. But if you say, like, I can't believe it, my whole life you have to be very careful, because the kids will internalize the message. You don't want to overdo it. You have to balance. But the most important thing for me is if my children are honest, and there are other tricks that you can use. We may have mentioned it, that it's suggested it's been suggested by some great people that if a child does something wrong and he's honest about it, you tell him that if you tell me the truth, there will not be no consequences. That sends an extremely powerful message that this is a very high value, because somebody, let's say, go back to the lamp, somebody broke the lamp. Okay, so it upsets you very much, but if you can stay calm and you say, okay, we need to know who did it, okay, because it was very irresponsible, and but if you'll admit it, then there won't be any consequence for it. Right, if you tell them there won't be a consequence, what you're doing is, listen, the lamp is broken anyway, the kid's not gonna fix it, and, it's
I'm
gone.
not talking about the lamp, but if
Right.
somebody steals, somebody lie, so.
Right, so the same thing, so, but as you follow through, let's say somebody steals something, so you tell them if they admit it, so then there won't be any consequence, or there won't be any punishment, but they still you have to show them how they have to go, they have to, if they took money and they went and they spend it, they have to figure out a way to earn some money, figure out a whole system how they can earn money in the house, and then they're paying it back, through some service, cleaning up, whatever it might be, some chores. And they may have to go back to the person. It depends on the situation. If it's too embarrassing, if they took money out of the Rebbe's drawer, they just, they don't want the Rebbe to know that, so fine, so we'll figure out a way to get it back to him, maybe not face to face. All of those situations call for a lot of good judgment. But if you pursue it and you follow it and you don't drop it, then you're showing that it's of very high value. So, again, the fights between the kids, they'll forget them 30 seconds later. So to invest too much emotion into that, it's not called for, basically, in terms of what the children's needs are. So that, I would say, is how you should deal with that. Okay. Yes.
Are you ever allowed to take sides? Like, what if somebody all of a sudden you're screaming, they're playing a game, and somebody, I don't know, whatever, knocked all the pieces off the board because he was mad during the game.
Right.
So then, but they were, the other one was clearly not wrong because they were just playing the game and he got mad. So then you can.
Right. If you know
those
the whole
wrong
whole situation, then you're confident that that's
Okay.
what's going on. Then we say we don't. You state the rule that we
Right.
don't ruin other people's games. If you have a problem, let's figure out a solution. But then then there can be a consequence if it's clear. But it may be that they skipped that person's turn. It could be that they were playing the game and the other person kept sneaking in other pieces to make them lose. And they're younger, so they don't have any other tools to deal with it. You may decide, rather than that this child can't play the game, just the game is going away, for the rest of the day, because But you're right. You have to know the situation. You have to know the situation. Yes.
What is Rabbi Baumann's opinion on forcing the kids to apologize to each other, or saying you have to apologize?
Right. So forcing them to apologize. It's we have the formula in school, which is a little bit more sophisticated than just saying I'm sorry, which is that's meaningless.
Right.
So that's acknowledging what they did wrong. I'm sorry that, as if they clearly did something wrong. I'm sorry that I broke your toy. And then the next step is they have to verbalize what impact it had on the other. I see it made you very sad. Very, very simple, for young kids. I see it made you sad. I promise to try never to do that again. You forgive me. That's 4 steps. Very simple. Okay, I'm sorry for X, so they acknowledge what they did wrong, which many kids, A, really don't know, and B, refuse to acknowledge.
Right.
So they're acknowledging what they did wrong. The second step is, I see it made you, whatever the feeling is, which is a very sophisticated step for children to, because so many children lack empathy naturally. We have to teach it to them. So this way they're understanding, although even it's general, I made you feel sad, they don't really know what it made them feel, frustrated, angry, sad, the other child doesn't really know either, but those are all okay, that there is an emotion that, is not a good feeling emotion, so that, they're aware of the fact that my action had an impact on how you feel.
Okay.
And then you acknowledge for the future that you're don't promise to never do it again, because you can't keep such a promise. I promise to try to never do it again. and do you forgive me? And then the other one may need some cajoling to forgive, and if they don't, so, okay, so you're really upset, then they deal with that issue, and once they calm down,
Okay.
they usually do forgive you. I mean, in school, it's like magic.
So the first few times, let's say I implement this, is it okay for them to just repeat after me until they learn the,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, I mean, you're helping them.
Okay.
You're helping them. You may want to do it in a time which not during a fight,
Right.
not during a time of being upset, whatever I mean, doing tshuva is, the old slogan, repent now, avoid the Yom Kippur rush. I mean, anytime you can, talk to them about doing tshuva. And the steps in tshuva is acknowledging what you did wrong, and admitting that you did something wrong, and then, feeling bad about doing something wrong, and then, accepting in the future to try to avoid it.
Okay,
Future.
thank you.
Does that go with the iMessage, like, I don't like when you do this, it makes me feel whatever?
Right, that's for
Can you do that again?
to help
Is that like
to help the victim not be like the victim, be able to have words to say that, I feel bad when you do this to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that way they're able to assert themselves to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm. So that also has to be like trained,
Right,
for the
right.
kids to,
But it'll hopefully sound a little familiar from school.
I was gonna say, when you hear it in school, they come home with, oh, you have to use that iMessage.
Mhm.
Right.
My kids say it together.
until what age do they, like, sometimes I feel like it's a little old, like the kids are like, oh, I'm sorry, like they say it with like rolling eyes. a little
Right,
bit.
they may,
What age is it, so what age is this effective?
I guess until they roll their eyes, but even then, it's not necessarily, they may roll their eyes, but they,
They're still saying
it still might be helpful.
They roll their eyes, but they
Yeah.
listen.
Uh-huh.
And they
So,
think-
right,
Even adults can use iMessages.
Yeah.
that's true.
Definitely.
Exactly, it's like the
Mhm.
reverse.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So, next week is our last session, so, okay. All right, Pesach is coming up.
Wow,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
I will.
El sentimiento de normalidad es un mecanismo de defensa, pero lo que va pasando es cuando
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.